On this Friday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, we have more of an idea of what the 2022-2023 reverse retro jerseys will look like for the Florida Panthers. We're also going to talk about whether Matthew Tkachuk can live up to the expectations of the Florida Panthers as well. And we're going to continue the discussion around Hockey Canada and everything that's going on based on their most recent World Junior wins and everything prior to that. We're going to discuss that next on the Friday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Friday, August 26th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Rondo Velez from PantherBarkway.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on Twitter at LO_FLA Panthers. Don't forget to subscribe to Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Steel Roden, and Locked On NHL will be covering all the off-season activities around the National Hockey League. And today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. And speaking of BetOnline, BetOnline has the Florida Panthers as the favorite at plus 475 to get to the Stanley Cup final, despite all the turnover that they had this off season. You love to see it. So even though my expectations for the Panthers are a little lower than what BetOnline has, hey, it's great to see that outside of the organization, people who look at the NHL as a whole likes what the Panthers have on paper. So speaking of the Panthers, let's discuss a little bit about what they're going to be wearing on the ice next season. And apologies in advance about my voice, about how it sounds. I've been a little under the weather this week. If you heard a little bit on Wednesday's episode with Jacob Wines, you heard me coughing quite a bit. And I have a little bit of orange juice here. Usually don't recommend it before recording a podcast. Something my band director also told me when I was going to school about not drinking orange juice before either going in front of a microphone or playing an instrument. But today is an exception because your boy is not feeling his best. And apologies if you hear a little bit of coughs. Also have a few cough drops here on the side to consume in the middle of the show, just so that you guys won't be hearing an aggressive cough throughout the show. But let's talk about a little bit of the reverse retro jerseys for the Panthers, about how we're one step closer to getting a reveal of what the reverse retro jerseys will look like. And, you know, it's something that was leaked by sportslogos.net. Chris Creamer was looking around Fanatics and seeing what every single NHL team will be sporting for their reverse retros. Even though a jersey isn't specifically out yet for the Panthers, sorry guys, bad news about that. But the at least as far as the shirts and the color scheme for the Panthers, it's described as a jet blue reverse retro look with the palm tree and hockey stick logo in the middle for the Panthers. So we're likely going to see that type of color scheme for the Panthers. And we're likely, even though I'm more in favor of the Leaping Panther being in the center with that color scheme, because of course I'm a nostalgic kind of person. I love their colors, their color scheme last go around, even though it was a darker blue and red. But the same jet blue with the Leaping Panther, it looks like, from what reports are saying and everything that George Richards of Florida Hockey Now has written in his article, it looks like that when, at least the expectation is, when the Florida Panthers do release their reverse retros, we're likely going to see the palm tree hockey stick as the main logo in front of the jersey. So it's a little bit different than what they had. They had a little bit of a jet blue look around the 2009, late 2000s, early 2010s, when they had the jet blue look, a little bit of a darker blue, and just the Panther face with Florida Panthers circled around it. Not something that the fans are. It wasn't a popular jersey as far as the fans, and it was even in consideration from Panthers ownership until Bill Torrey, Dale Talon discussed it, and they said no, they're not. They're going to go back to their red jerseys in 2011, and the Jet Blues only lasted around 3 seasons for the Panthers. But this is a little bit of where I'm expecting a little bit of a different one. So, of course, what's going to be the main driver of these? What's the main motivation behind these reverse retros? Of course, it's money for the NHL, and of course, it's going to help with revenues, salary cap, all that stuff. So it's a good thing for the NHL. It's a good thing for us that we get to appreciate for a little while these new reverse retro jerseys for this season. So yeah, with these jerseys, it was described as the ones, at least in the late 2010s, early to late 2000s, early 2010s, that it was a copy of what the Pittsburgh color schemes were for the Winter Classic. But the expectation is to wear this around maybe a quarter of the games this season, at least written by George Richards of Florida Hockey Now. Go ahead and subscribe to that. Him and Kobe Guy also write articles every single day about the Panthers, about the reverse retro. This is really how I was more made aware of these reverse retros. So it's cool. I can't wait for the official announcement for these reverse retros. And yeah, if you had to choose which jersey you would get for reverse retros, tell us in the comments below. You might have already a Barkov home jersey, a regular red, but are you going to get a Barkov reverse retro with this one? Or are you going to get the new toy, the unicorn in Matthew Tkachuk, as far as these new sweaters for the Florida Panthers? So it's cool. I'm excited for it. I also wonder what the secondary logo is going to be on the shoulder as well. Where we've been used to the palm tree and the hockey stick on the shoulder part of the jersey, but looks like they could be going something different. So a little bit of a change for the Panthers as far as this new sweater. So it's something to be really excited about. In segment number 2, we are going to talk about an article that came out yesterday via the Hockey Writers, talking about Matthew Tkachuk, whether he is likely or unlikely to repeat the same performance in Calgary when during his 8-year deal here with the Florida Panthers. But first, we're going to tell you all about BetOnline. And BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including MLB, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and golf. And if you bet on Scotty Scheffler right before the Tour Championship, your odds are really looking good for winning some cash this week in this week's action of golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. Segment number 2 here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast on this Friday edition of the show. As you can tell, no Fairbanks Friday on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Just scheduling conflicts as far as recording, and a lot of it had to do with how I was feeling this week. Not feeling my best, but still want to put on a show for you guys and put something out there to talk about the state of the Panthers and everything surrounding this team. But an article came out yesterday from the Hockey Writers about talking about how Matthew Tkachuk unlikely to live up to the expectation with the Panthers. And this was an article written by Colton Penku. Sorry if I pronounced his name incorrectly. And I actually decided to look up this person, and this person is a Calgary-based writer. And I really don't know what the motivation is when it came to writing this article, because really spoke about how Matthew Tkachuk and it made it seem as if Johnny Gaudreau was the reason why Matthew Tkachuk had all this success, and as if Alexander Barkov, and if Paul Maurice puts a first line of Tkachuk, Barkov, and Reinhart on line one, that can't be replicated. And we also got to think about how Matthew Tkachuk, once again, I'm beating a dead horse on this, but Matthew Tkachuk is 24 years old. With having still a decade plus left in the tank, this is really bold to say that the 24-year-old can't replicate what happened in Calgary, having 104 points. But even if he has like 90 to 95 points, are we Florida Panther fans going to be necessarily upset? No, that's over a point per game. I'm going to be happy about that. And the Panthers on paper look like they're going to take a step back. But who's to say that 4 or 5 years from now, he can't even get back to that point or be a consistent 100-point scorer, even in year 2 or year 3 even of that new deal. So I just don't see how it makes sense for saying that Matthew Tkachuk can't live up to the expectations. And listen, for Jonathan Huberdeau going to the Flames, can I see him living up to expectations for the Calgary Flames? 115 points like he did last season? For a little while. If he gets it again next season for the Calgary Flames with Elias Lindholm on his line, then I'd be very happy for Huberdeau. I would, and if he wins a Stanley Cup with the Calgary Flames, having Nazem Kadri there, Andrew Mangiapane, Tyler Toffoli there in the mix, I'd be happy for Huberdeau. Is it going to be more than 1 to 2 years? That I doubt. 29 years old, Jonathan Huberdeau. 24-year-old Matthew Tkachuk. Both 100-point players. And term-wise, including this year, 9 more years for Huberdeau on his current contract and his new, versus Matthew Tkachuk on his current one right now, 8 years, with him being 24. And it's just very bold to say, once again, that he is going to not even be close to that. I don't know. It's just I can maybe understand that there'll be growing pains in the first year. New environment, new coaching staff, new teammates. Sure, I can agree with that. But who's to say that Matthew Tkachuk has even hit his ceiling as a player? I find it hard to believe that he's hit his ceiling already. I just can't say that with certainty. I just can't. And sure, he struggled in the postseason outside of game 1 against Edmonton. The whole team did for the Calgary Flames. But with opportunities to consistently make the playoffs, because the Panthers, on paper, are still a playoff team. And getting those game reps in, who's to say that he's going to continue a drought at this age? Sure, he has 10 points in 12 playoff games the past year, and 4 of those came in the second round. But who's to say that it can't be sustainable for Matthew Tkachuk? I think that if anything, he's only going to get better. And you don't need, listen, I'm at the point with the Panthers where even if they don't win the division, if they get somewhere around 101 to 105 points, that's okay. We are at the point where we can't think of just consistently racing towards the President's Trophy only to flame out, because we saw how that happened last season. And we talked about the run and gun style for the Florida Panthers, about how a lot of it came off the a lot of their opportunities came off the rush. What we're hoping for the Panthers is be more of a puck possession, responsible team in their own zone as well. And that is more of a game that's going to translate in the postseason. This is all about advancing further than just the second round. We got a little bit of a taste. Sure, they didn't win a single game in the second round, but this is why you also brought an experienced coach in Paul Maurice. Although there's still a lot of fans out there who are not in favor of this hiring. Yes, very understandable. But with him having a long leash as well, Bill Zito's also going to have a long leash too, in my opinion. And long-term commitments to 2 superstar players, they have an opportunity to grow while still being young. Barkov's 26 years old. Let's not forget that too. And sure, there might be maybe another season of not making it to the Stanley Cup final. Personally, even though I discussed earlier in the show about BetOnline being having the Panthers as the favorite to get out of the Eastern Conference, if I'm thinking objectively, I think it might be Carolina's year to get out of the Eastern Conference. They've been knocking on the door for many years, even though they've had their little bit of turnover as well. Got Brett Burns, Paul Stastny in the mix now. But they've been replenishing some of the pieces around the core. And this is also what Bill Zito's trying to figure out as well. And also, with the news that was reported yesterday from Bill Daly, deputy commissioner, saying that there could be a significant rise in the salary cap 2 seasons from now. 2 seasons seems a little far away. But 2 seasons from now, that'll be 2 years remaining on Bob's contract. Aaron Ekblad would be 1 year away from an extension, or 1 year left on his deal, whatever. We'll judge Aaron Ekblad's play as he gets closer, but he's still going to be on this team for a little while. The Bob contract won't look so bad a few years from now. And Tkachuk and Barkov's contracts will be so friendly to the team that they could even bring another player in. And they're already with that $15 million in flexibility now for next season. It's only going to be create bigger flexibility for the Panthers to bring even more pieces in. And once again, this is why you give 3-year deals to a Duclair, 3-year deals to a Sam Reinhart, and 4-year deals to a Sam Bennett, because they know who the guys they want long term here. Barkov, Tkachuk, Ekblad. Those are the 3. Of course, Bob is from the previous regime, but that contract is now more not manageable. Manageable is the wrong word. but it's not as much of a dent on your team as we originally saw a few years ago. Yeah, for this season, yes. Of course, it takes up a big part of the salary cap, but it still gives the Panthers many opportunities to complement the lineup. And with complementing the lineup as well for the Panthers, wouldn't that mean that Matthew Tkachuk's production would be similar to Calgary or even better as he gets older? As usually the prime of your career will be around 27, 28 years old. Matthew Tkachuk's 4 years away from that. And this writer is saying that he won't at all throughout his 8 years. Let's also realize how much of a long time that is as well. Long time that he won't live up at all. I don't subscribe to that. I just don't. So my friend Joey Gansey, who is also part of the Hockey Writers, I told him in our group chat today, go get your boy. So Joey Gansey, go get your boy. And of course, a lot of Panther fans had a lot to say about replying to that article as well. It's at the Hockey Writers. Take a read for yourself, but and make your own judgments based on the article from the Hockey Writers. In the next segment, we're going to continue the discussion around Hockey Canada and everything that happened from the previous World Junior Championship and everything that's going on in their latest investigation. But first, we have a message to you from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. And it can happen so easily. You're out with your friends or coworkers. You're putting back a few drinks. A few can become a few too many. It's time to go. And for a moment, you think of calling for a ride. Nah, you're a good driver. You live nearby. You can make it home okay. But what are the odds you get pulled over? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? You lose your license, your job, total your car, or you could kill someone. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. Drive sober or get pulled over. Third and final segment here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast on this Friday, August 26th edition of the show. And the latest trigger warnings, first of all, from talking about, this is a conversation continuing about the latest sexual assault allegations of Hockey Canada. And, when Hockey Canada ended up being the winner of the World Junior Championships last week, a lot of mixed feelings were spoken about, Canada doesn't even deserve to be part of the World Juniors, F their organization and all that stuff. And I still believe that we can condemn the organization, but still celebrate the players, because the players who are currently on the team have nothing to do with what happened 2018 and of course 2003. We were talking about that. And Halifax police apparently know the two of the players who were involved in what happened in 2003. So that is the latest update on what happened in 2003. I'm going to look up real quickly who that was reported by. It was reported by Ashley Burke about Halifax police knowing the names of the two players from the World Junior Championship team. And then there was another article that came out a few days ago about sponsors, because by Susan Krasinski, talking about how Hockey Canada went up to sponsors about what they can do in order to get their sponsors back, and talking about top executives and board members. If we just get rid of these people here and there, would you be able to sponsor us again? And these sponsors, credit to them, big credit to them, that they're standing their ground about saying how more than just getting rid of some people is going to make it not only going to make a difference, but you're going to gain our trust back. And this gives me a little hope that as far as when it comes to dollars versus people, that the sponsors are starting to think about people and the possible damage that this organization, and listen, this could happen in any of the organizations. It could happen with Team USA. It could happen with Sweden. It happens with Finland. We just only know Hockey Canada. But that they're seeing, the sponsors are saying, why are we putting our money towards an organization that has neglected victims? And it seems like Hockey Canada is taking the direction of just we'll get rid of this, but not solving the real issue. And we discussed this a few weeks ago, how they have a separate trust fund for these allegations for settlement money. And that in itself is messed up. Now that it became publicly known, they reportedly put that money somewhere else, into education. Why did it take until it was publicly known in order for them to put it somewhere else? It just goes to show that they just care about gaining money from these sponsors instead of trying to do what's best for not only their people, but people outside of their organization that their players interact with. Because even though the mind's not fully developed at age 18 or 19, whenever these players participate in their World Junior Championships, we got to make sure that they are well aware with education, the consequence of what happens once you turn 18 or 19 years old, because age is just a number. And you could think you're 17 one day, and then once people think they're 18, they have that sense of, oh, I can do whatever you want. I can do whatever I want. But sometimes people take it a little too far of they can do whatever they want, and then don't realize that their consequences are different. I mean, I'm used to it, for at least in the US, of the consequences of being tried as an adult versus being a minor. But this education is needed for these young players. And these sponsors are looking for bigger changes than just firing a whole bunch of board of directors or top executives in Hockey Canada. And credit to the sponsors for continuing to stand their ground. And we saw how the most recent World Junior Championship, if any of you guys watched it, that there were no sponsors on the boards, which is weird to see for me, at least. I'm so used to just ads everywhere on the boards when watching a game. To just see the logo of the World Junior Championship there in the most recent World Junior Championship, it's just a lot of the organization doesn't look good. And I was just telling this to Jacob Winans. I was texting him the other day saying this, and I mean it when I say it. Any profit that Hockey Canada made from this most recent World Junior Championship, I don't know what their numbers look like, but I think that should be the number that should be fine for that organization. What is going to hit these organizations most? Their pockets. That is what's going to hurt them the most. And it might need to be a fine of something in the 8-figure range in order for these organizations to really learn their lessons. It's not only the organizations, it's the players who have gotten involved too. Because these acts have been committed by the players, but the adults in the room, the executives, the coaches, have to also take them by the side and say, you're possibly ruining your life, man, by doing this. And needing an adult there to just knock some sense into them. They can maybe knock some hockey sense into them on the ice, but they need to knock some real sense in them off the ice for sure. And just the executives and the board, people of the board, it's not going to be enough. So Hockey Canada and all of these organizations, please be part of the solution. Please think of your people, and please think of more of them and less of just a profit. That's all I ask of you, of this. Thank you for listening to this Friday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. I know this is not an easy conversation to continue to have, but a conversation that we need to continue having in order for these to not happen again. Next week on the podcast, in the beginning of the week, either Monday or Tuesday, not sure when, we're gonna try to get another preseason divisional crossover edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, where I'm going to be bringing in another division rival host of the Locked On Podcast Network. If you have not heard my most recent episode with Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley of Locked On Red Wings, make sure to check that out. That's the Monday episode. We're going to bring in another divisional opponent host here on Locked On Panthers as we discuss their team. And of course, we're going to discuss the Panthers here, of course. But make sure to subscribe on the YouTube and subscribe on the podcast. Make sure to leave a review, 5-star review, preferably. And, if you have any questions, make sure to at me at LO_FLA Panthers. Email me at lockedonflapanthers@gmail.com. And don't feel free to reach out. My DMs are always open. If you ever need to just want to have a conversation in relation to the Panthers. So make sure to reach me there. But in the meantime, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Steel Road, and we'll be talking about all the offseason activities around the National Hockey League. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And for your second listen of the day, make sure to listen to today's episode of Locked On NHL. Locked On experts give you a 30-minute podcast on all things National Hockey League. Locked On NHL, your daily 30-minute NHL podcast. So I'm Armando Velez, signing off. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.